Do you and your spouse find yourselves constantly fighting about everything when it comes to your children? Can you never seem to agree on things like discipline, bedtimes, and who can take the kids to sports practice? If so, you're not alone. Parenting is challenging, especially when spouses have experienced completely different upbringings. But letting parenting clashes drive a wedge between you and your spouse will not only cause your marriage to deteriorate, it could also have a serious negative impact on your children. It's essential for your marriage and your children's health and happiness that you and your spouse become a parenting team. In this video, there are 4 guidelines to follow in order to reestablish a connection with your spouse and become united in your parenting. Number 1, always back each other up. Often in marriage, one spouse ends up being the stricter parent and the other one is more lenient. These different styles usually come from differences in their personalities, as well as their own childhood upbringings. For instance, Paul grew up in a strict family in which him and his siblings were kept to a tight routine and were immediately disciplined for any bad behavior. As a result, he believes that his 2 young children should be kept to a strict dinner and bedtime routine, with consequences in place if they try to get out of bed. On the other hand, Maya was the 5th child in her family and experienced quite laid-back parenting, in which she was often allowed to stay up later with her siblings, and a lot of naughty behavior was shrugged off as just kids being kids. As a result, she is less worried about having a set dinner time or bedtime for their children, and tends to be more lenient with the kids if they get out of bed at night, often reading them another story or letting them have a hot drink. Although there's nothing wrong with having different parenting styles, this can often cause conflict between spouses if they do not communicate and come up with ways to approach parenting issues as a team. In the case of Paul and Maya, these differences in their approach to situations such as bedtime have been putting serious strain on their marriage. Paul feels that Maya is undermining him and making him feel like a bad guy when she doesn't back up the consequences he has set, while Maya feels that Paul is being too hard on the kids and could do with loosening up. If they do not find a way to parent as a team, then this could continue to rupture their marriage through tension and resentment. Consequently, the children will also be exposed to unstable parenting and may develop unhealthy behavioral patterns. Hence the importance of backing each other's parenting decisions. It is an effective way of bridging the gap between parenting styles, and when this strategy is implemented, the 2 spouses gradually become more similar in their parenting styles over time. The end result is that parents end up being a much stronger parental team when they are both gentle but firm in their parenting and set the same limits, which is greatly beneficial for their kids. The children will feel safe and settled in a predictable environment. This in turn will lead to better listening and improved behavior. Another great benefit from this is that the couple will feel more supported by one another and confidence in one's ability to discipline the children effectively, bringing them closer in relationship. Number 2, not in front of the kids. This point follows the first one. The best way to discuss parenting issues is when you and your spouse are feeling calm and are alone. Because when parents argue about parenting decisions in front of their kids, this creates an unsettling environment which could have serious effects on the children's well-being. The added tension in the household caused by fighting parents will often cause children to start acting out more. But as the parents are too busy blaming each other and focusing on who's right, their children are not receiving the attention and discipline they need. Children are good at intuitively picking up when their parents are not on the same page when it comes to discipline and using this to their advantage. They may try to deliberately cause an argument between their parents in order to get away with acting out. And the reality is that their behavior won't improve if their parents are too busy clashing to set reasonable limits and give their children the discipline they need for misbehavior. Kids need boundaries, but they don't have the maturity to set these for themselves. This is your job as parents. So make a rule to never argue about your parenting in front of your children. Always back each other up in front of the kids and go over any parenting disagreements with your spouse later when you are alone. Or alternately, distract your children and ask to speak to your spouse in another room. Keep in mind that your goal is to raise healthy, well-behaved, and happy kids. And in order to do this, you need to work together with your spouse. So it is important to go into these discussions with a clear head and a will to come to a beneficial resolution. Having the discussion when you are both really fired up is not going to be productive, so give each other the chance to calm down beforehand. Number 3, communicate and listen to each other with respect. Whenever a parenting issue comes up that you and your spouse disagree on, take a moment to talk about each of your viewpoints on the topic and why you feel this way. Often, there will be significant reasons underpinning why each of you feels strongly about a certain issue. Again, this comes back to your own upbringings and your vision for the future. The next time you and your spouse are discussing a parental issue, try hearing out the spouse's views without defending, blaming, criticizing, or trying to talk them into your way of doing things. Listen to what they have to say and recognize your understanding of why the issue is important to them. If your spouse feels more strongly about it than you do, but you accept their reasoning, tell them that you don't feel as strongly about it, but will support their decision. And hopefully, they will do the same when there is something you feel more strongly about. Remember, there is never one right way to do things when it comes to parenting. If you can respect that your spouse may have thoughts which are different to your own, but are very bit as valid, you will become more open to negotiation and finding common ground. From this point of greater understanding and acceptance of where each other is coming from, you will be more open to different ways of thinking about parenting issues. You will feel heard, valued, and understood by one another, which are crucial elements in getting your marriage back into a healthy place. Number 4, make each other's emotional needs a priority. It can be easy to get so caught up in all the demands of child rearing that you start to neglect the needs of your spouse. Perhaps the time, love, and affection you used to give freely to your spouse seems to now be all used up with the kids, leaving your interactions with your spouse feeling empty and cold. Right now, the easiest way for you to feel connected to your spouse would be to see them also putting lots of effort into child care, but they don't seem to be as dedicated as you do. Or perhaps you are the opposite spouse. You have tried to connect and be affectionate with your spouse, but they seem to keep pushing you away and leaving their time and energy solely for the kids. Eventually, you give up trying and withdraw your own emotional support. As this goes on, both spouses end up feeling resentful and neglected. The spouse investing more into child care may feel unsupported by their spouse, while the withdrawing spouse may feel that their spouse doesn't care about their marriage anymore. And soon enough, the marriage starts to fall apart. The truth is, parenting is a whole lot harder if your own needs are not being met, as you are constantly drained of emotional resources. You and your spouse need nurture and affection as well as your children. And the best source you can receive this from is each other. Meeting each other's emotional needs will give you and your spouse the strength you need to be good parents. The more effort you put into meeting your spouse's needs, the more they will also strive to meet yours. And this will give you both the emotional resources you need to be able to give your children the support they need. Remember the love that created your children in the first place. Don't let parenting struggles drive you and your spouse apart. Support and love one another in the best way you can as you go through this challenging but rewarding phase in your life. If you found this advice helpful, there is a video series that can help you in all aspects of your marriage. Click the link in the description for more information, and as always, like and subscribe.